So I started having serious problems right at like, I think it was like the very end of 2019, definitely by January 2020. And, you know, to recount the podcast, like I started building this March 2020. Mm-hmm. So it was getting worse, right? And couldn't figure out what it was for a long time. And as I was, those first like 9-10 months from March until January 2021, it went off a cliff. Like it was, you know, I was in the ER in June 2020, couldn't breathe.
Damn.
I was like, what the f-? And I had been training like a pro athlete for like 7 years, right? Before that, I had never trained before. I was built like a fucking slinky. And then, you know, I worked my ass off. I, you know, did lift and cardio and box like crazy, like loved it. It was my outlet. And so when we got into the pandemic, you had to do home workouts and they sucked. Yeah. But like I could at least do some decent ones towards the beginning. And then I actually went to the ER after trying to work out downstairs. And I was doing basic back rows to warm up. And suddenly my left arm started, I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, what the f-? And I'm like the last guy who's like, take me to the ER. You know, I'm like, I'll just walk it off. I'm fine. And then I went outside, I started paying, and I'm like, I said that my aunt was home. I was like, you gotta take me to the ER. Like, I don't know what's going on. And at the ER, like eventually I like calmed down and I was like, maybe am I having a panic attack?
Right, I was gonna say that.
But I'm like, at the time I felt so free. I was like working on something I loved. You know, life had forced me to take this fork in the road. And I was like, this is great. Like I had just recorded those first episodes like the week before. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like we're getting after it. And I'm like, yeah, it must just be panic attacks. I don't know why. But, you know, I had been seeing doctors since like February. So what happened, to go back for a second, in February 2020, I went into a pulmonologist's office, lung doctor. Mm-hmm. And I said, listen, man, because I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. You know, I always like to watch my health, like something could be wrong. I'm like, I'm really sorry if I'm wasting your time. I'm probably wasting your time right now. I've had these weird symptoms the last couple months. So apologies in advance, but I just wanted to make sure. He's like, no, tell me what's going on. So I go through my whole regimen and all these symptoms and stuff. And he's like looking at me weird, like this is strange. You know, I would not be able to breathe out of nowhere. I would feel clogged up in my throat. I had mucus all over the place, whatever. And these are things I never dealt with. Yeah. So it was in my workouts, like if, for example, if I went to go do a basic chest press, it would feel like my chest was like creaking, like in on itself.
Right.
And he's like, I'm glad you came. This is strange. He's like, have you ever had a breathing test before? And I'm like, what the f*** is that? And he's like, oh, okay. It's a little expensive, but I really want to give you one. I'm like, cash or check. Let's go. Like when it comes to my health, like even when I had no money, I'm like, whatever you need, let's go. Yeah. So I go take one of these tests, and the way they do it is they put you in a chamber and they have you do these like special breaths into this like tube, and they measure it on a computer. And then they give you something called albuterol, which opens up your lungs, and they do the same exact breathing tests. And so what they want is both tests to match each other, because then people, they know like the lungs are normal, meaning when it got help, when the lungs got opened up, it didn't perform any better or only a little bit better.
Right, okay, got it.
Right? So
okay, understood.
I take this test, I go back upstairs afterwards, and he walks into the room. Now, mind you, this is like, I think I remember that this was like February 13th, 2020. So it's like a month before the pandemic, right? So COVID's a thing, but it's not really a thing yet. But he walks back in the room with like a furrowed brow, like looking at the chart. And he's like, how'd you feel doing that? I'm like, I don't know, like I'm fucking dying. Like, you know, I don't feel good. That's why I'm in here. And he's like, do you mind if I talk with my partner? Is that cool with you? I just want to go through these. I'm like, yeah, no. I'm thinking like I got cancer now. I'm like, oh, shit. So he leaves the room. He comes back 5 minutes later and he goes, okay. So when we do these tests, right, the second one with the albuterol, it opens up your lungs. And what we want to see is if you have normal lungs, the first test without the albuterol, you got at least 97% of the 100 that you get on the albuterol. Some people will get up to 100. He's like, those are normal lungs. Lungs that it's like, oh, we got to watch these a little bit, or maybe it was like 93 to 96. Lungs that have maybe the earliest form of asthma are like 90 to 92, and then clear asthma are like 86 to 89. And really, he didn't say it like this, but really fucked up is below 86. Yeah. He's like, you scored an 84.
Jesus.
And I was like, all right, I'm not crazy. Like something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And he's like, to his credit, he didn't just rush to a conclusion. He's like, I'm not going to diagnose you with asthma today. He's like, you really worked out like you said you have without any problems for all these years? I said, yeah, doc, like no problem. And now there's problems. He goes, okay, I'm going to give you some basic inhaler stuff, and we're going to try that for the next like 3 weeks and just see if it helps the symptoms. And we're going to assess this over like I think he said like 4 to 6 months or something. I said, okay. So he gives me the inhaler, and it helped. It got me from like, I had dropped down to like 60% capacity. It got me back up to like 85, 90. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I have asthma. And I had an appointment with him like a week before the pandemic. And he's like, that's good. I want to keep monitoring this. So then the pandemic hits. We know the story. I've told it on here before. Well, people listening don't. But I went back down to my parents' house in South Jersey, April 1st. And from April to June, off a cliff, ended up in the ER. And so one of the things that this pulmonologist had me doing over those 3 months was starting to see other specialists to rule things out. So like the day the pandemic hit, that morning, I was in with a cardiologist doing a stress test. He's like, your heart's great. It's like, good, let's take that off. So he wanted me seeing a gastro to see if I had something wrong in my stomach. They couldn't find anything wrong in my stomach. This goes on and on and on. And as the podcast builds, I'm getting worse. And I actually remember the day where I was like, holy shit, maybe I'm dying. Like, not to be dramatic, but it was so bad. It was the day you came to do the podcast.
Really?
That morning, yeah, that was January 4th, 2021. That morning, I went in to do a boxing workout in my garage. It's my favorite thing to do. I can box all day. A standard boxing workout for me is after doing a full lift, I'm going to do 12 3-minute and 20-second rounds on the bag with a minute break in between each. Like, I could do this in my sleep. And I couldn't do it. And it was really scary. Like, I was in a horrible mood before you came, and I'm like, I got this guy coming today. He's like coming 2.5 hours for me. Great dude. This is a great connection. Wake up. Like, we'll worry about this later. Yeah. And it just stayed at this level for the next 2-3 months. So I started seeing specialists again. And eventually my grandfather's friend was like the head of medicine at Jefferson. So he gets me on the phone with him. And I go and I meet with this guy. Awesome dude, Dr. Kane. Shout out Dr. Kane. And he went through all the different specialists and what they had found. And he's like, all these doctors are good. Everything they're looking at looks 100% right. And he's like, all right, I want you to tell me the story of your life for the last 1.5 years. Just not medical, just like your life, where you've been, what you're doing. And I'm just going to sit here and take notes, and we're going to see what we land on.
Right.
And I got my mom in there with me. I'm like, what the f is it? All right, whatever. So we start going through this whole thing. And at one point, I talk about how in November 2019, mind you, I lived in North Jersey. My parents were in South Jersey. But November 2019, my parents got a golden retriever puppy. Now, I grew up with a golden retriever. From age 4 to 18, she was my best friend. She slept in my bed every night. And when I go through the puppy thing with him, and then start going through the next couple months and what happened, like he had like that Kaiser Soze moment where he like looked up and looked to my right and he's like, oh my God, you're allergic to the dog.
Oh no.
And I'm like, look at my mom, I'm like, no. And he's like, hear me out. And so he's like, I think you're allergic to like everything. And your body was, including dogs. And so when you were exposed to these things at such a young age, your body built up a tolerance and learned to fight it off.
Right.
And so then your childhood dog dies at 18. He said, did you have a dog again after that? I said, yeah, I had a pit bull in college. He goes, pit bull, short hair. Yeah. It sheds, but like it's nothing like a golden retriever. He's like, so you were mostly okay with that. Did he sleep in your bed? I said, no. He's like, okay. He said, have you had a dog since then? I said, no, it's been like 4 or 5 years. And he's like, I'm telling you what happened here is your body had that. It fought it off all those years, and then it was out of your life, and your body said, all right, good. It's gone. Don't bring that in again.
Wow.
And now you brought it in again, and those fortresses aren't there. And so what's happened is not only are you allergic to her, but all the allergies that you fought off, including grass, your body is now reacting to at all times.
Right.
And you feel like you're done. You feel like, congratulations, you don't have cancer, but like you feel like you do, right? And I'm like, yes. He's like, all right, you're not going to die. You're good. I'm like, great. but I'm like, really? You think I'm allergic to everything? He's like, you're going to go see my allergist in 2 days. They're going to do a test on you. Watch. So when they go to do an allergy test on you, they basically lay you out and they put needles all over your body of all these different substances that they put right below the skin.
Right.
And they measure how big the reaction is.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how the measurements work, but you'll hear them, after they let everything settle, they'll go and they'll make the measurements on each one. And they would go to like normal and they'd be like, 1 by 2, well, one by 2.5. And then they'd get to like dust and it'd be like 487 by 1. And I'm like, oh shit.
Holy shit.
So then I like get up from the test and they're like, Doc's right. You are allergic to everything and you have what's called eosinophilic asthma. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And they're like, what happens is in layman's terms, your allergies cause a severe asthmatic reaction, which shuts down your ability to breathe. And when you shut down your ability to breathe, your entire immune system, it's like a cascading effect, shuts down and closes in on itself and attacks your body at all times. And they're like, so long as you live in the current house you do without getting treatment on this, you're always going to have problems.
Right.
And I said, well, what are my options? And they said, well, you have to commit to allergy shots. And it's not a guarantee it works, but there's a pretty high possibility. And I'm like, well, what does that comprise of? And they said, you have to do it every week for at least a year and then every month after that, and you cannot miss even one. And I knew, I was like, okay. This was shortly after I'd started to go viral. I've been working on this for now well over a year. This was May 2021. And I was like, okay, I can't commit to that right now. I don't even own a car. I live in the woods with my parents. Like the closest doctor's office is going to be 15 minutes away. I'm going to miss a week at some point. Right. And this is all going to be a waste. So I had no money. So I'm like, all right, are there ways I can manage my symptoms to not be dying at all times? From here on out? And they said yes. So basically, I have the cleanest hands in America. I've had to stop washing my hands so much. I still wash them a lot, but I used to wash them 40 times a day.
I can imagine.
And it helped a little bit. And I knew I wasn't dying, so that was a great freedom. Yeah. Because now over the next couple of years that I was still there in that house, like I knew I was going to be okay. But my health disintegrated down and down and down and down. And what I told myself is when I make it out of here, I knew I was coming up north. I'm like, I'm going to be close to a doctor's office. No problem. I'm going to do this. So when I got here to Hoboken, August 2023, my symptoms got the worst they ever got.
Really?
My skin was shot out. I had clumps of hair falling out all over my body. Like my hair grew back this year all over my body from my head to my feet.
You're like, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it was... But like I can't even look at pictures of myself last fall, like even when I came on here, because I joined the gym and I would go in there 3 days a week at like either 10 a.m. or like 8 p.m. and the workouts were terrible. Yeah, because like I just couldn't do it, and I had such a high bar for what I used to do that it was like, holy shit. In the meantime, I was going through that horrible period with it was just like
a lot going. Your energy was off,
dude. I remember that. It was a hurricane.
Yeah,
and I was just like, oh my god, so. In coming here, I was in those 3 months, I was working with my office back home and the new one up here to get allergy shots like cooked or whatever they do and get ready to go. So I started those at the end of November.
Last year.
2023, about 3 weeks after we recorded. Okay. And the way they work is they said you won't see an effect from it for like the first at least 2 months, probably 3. Mm-hmm. So I was still fucked up. And you know me, you know what my schedule was like. My schedule was wake up at 5 a.m. Wake up at 10:30 in the morning. And the first 2 hours of the day sucked because I always had my worst symptoms. And then I'd get to work and I'd work till 4 or 5 a.m. and do it all over again. Terrible for your sleep, your body balance, all that shit. And I went home for Christmas in 2023 on like the 23rd. So on Christmas Day, my parents are from by Philly, so my grandfather lives at the shore in Ocean City, like an hour away. Yeah. Christmas Day, we go to Ocean City with the family at like 2:00, have a great time for like 6 hours. And I took a separate car from my parents because this was my life and this is how it was. And at 8:00, I said, I gotta go. And I got in my car and I went back home. I was home by 9. I was in front of my computer by 9:15, and I edited episode 178 from 9:15 until 3:46 in the morning.
Whoa.
And at the end of that, my skin's drooped. It's been drooped since before I did this. I feel like shit. Yeah. I hate my life. I love what I do, but I feel sick to my stomach. I'm sneezing everywhere. I got all these problems. And I closed the screen. I was like, this ends right now. We're done with this. I'm only like 4 or 5 weeks into the shots. So there's no effect yet. I feel like dog shit. My whole body's fucked up. But I'm like, I'm driving back up there on the 27th to Hoboken. On the 28th, I'm getting up at 6:50 a.m. By the end of 2024, I will be up at 6:25. I will be in the gym every morning, 6 days a week, including Saturdays, unless I get really fucked up on Friday night, right? And it's going to suck for the first couple months because I'm still really fucked up. It's so bad that like I always liked wearing a hat in the gym, so it doesn't really matter to me. It's fine. That's usually what I did. But I have to wear a hat in my gym because the ceiling is like one of those false ceilings with like the dust all over it. And when I was first going in there, some days I wouldn't wear a hat like last fall. And after 15 minutes, I start sweating, and dust is my worst allergy. Dust would get into my hair and suddenly my scalp would be on fire. Yeah, dude. So I'm like, I don't give a f***. We're going to wear a hat in there. We're going to go in there and we're going to set the precedent, and January is going to fucking suck. But if we can get to February, at some point there, it's going to start to get better. And it was so bad. Actually, I'll never show it to anyone, but I recorded a video of myself at like 3:30 in the morning in the beginning of January because I woke up coughing, couldn't breathe, like was clogged up and everything. And I was just so fucking miserable. And I was just like, I don't even want to watch the video, but I was like, for like a half hour, I was talking to myself and I just whipped out the camera just so I could have this if I needed it. And I was like, describing everything I felt. I'm like, this has got to stop. This cannot go on like this. Like, I can't live like this. Yeah. Like, I want to end it if I got to live like this.
Jeez.
And, no one cares. Like, you got to put out your podcast and do your job. Someone flies into town to be with you. You better do your job. So how am I going to feel better to do my job? Because somehow I was doing the job at a pretty high level, but I knew a lot of my fuck-outs were because I was like, like dead in there. I would be like, oh, make sure you drink your coffee while you're having this because you're going to die. Like you're going to fall asleep on the podcast. And so I got through January and then I got the time down. I started I think it was like 6:55. I got the time down to like 6:45 by like February 1st. And then in the end of February, I started to feel small effects from the shots. I was like, ooh, I'm not dying with some of the dust. Like, okay. And so March, I started to turn it up. And March, we recorded a lot of podcasts. And I felt the best I've ever felt. I just walked into them. I was like I remember we did Tommy G in I think that was like the 20th or something. And that was at like 8:00 at night on a weeknight. And I was like, at the end of that, I was like, oh, that was fire. And I felt amazing the whole time. You know what I mean? Like I just had a long day. I said, oh, this is going to get better. And there's a lot of things to complain about in the medical community these days with certain things going on. We all know that. Yeah. I call it both ways when I see stuff. And I got to say, I'm forever grateful for what I've been able to get because I've gotten my life back this year. And it's made me, I can't even watch podcasts from a year ago. It's terrible compared to what it is now because I'm firing on all cylinders.
You know what's crazy? I thought it was the ayahuasca when you came back here and you were in the studio for that. And I was like, what the f*** is Julian on? That this guy he is so locked in. The way you told a story, I was like mesmerized and so impressed. And I remember seeing you again in August when it just was a shitty time for you in general. And I was like, man, this is not the same guy. I was like, let me get some of that ayahuasca. But I guess it wasn't the ayahuasca.
Look, the ayahuasca was a separate thing.
I know. But you came with you were a different man. And it's sometimes, again, like with life, and I'm not going to get religious, but you got to feel really, really shitty sometimes. Just appreciate how normal feels. Like you're walking 100%. Around feeling like, God is great, but that's how normally everybody is. Like that's just not being sick. And so for 100%. You, like you feeling sick, it's just a blessing to feel normal now. And I get that for sure. Like being able to go to the gym and work out really, really hard. What a blessing that is for you.
Dude, I'm so grateful for it. Like this sounds corny, but like sometimes I'll leave the gym and I'll say like, thank you to my body.
That's not corny at all.
Like something, cause like probably 3 out of 5 workouts, you'd think it was my last workout ever, the way I fucking work in there. I'm working my dick off in there, and I love it because I feel good, right? Eventually, you look better, too. I put on like 20, 25 pounds this year.
You look
that's
way
great.
healthier, bro.
Thank you. Yeah. But like, that's a nice benefit. But like, for me, my job isn't to be fucking David Goggins. My job is to be great on a podcast. Yep. So however I feel mentally, whatever gets me there, in this case, exercise is the number one help, and eating clean is another thing I've done this year. Like whatever gets me there, I'm happy with. And that has been a cool process because it's not like it's not like I took for granted working out or whatever, right? I worked out hard for like 7-8 years because I loved it. It was a part of my day. It's where I got all my energy out. Yep. But then when it's taken from you out of nowhere, you're like, oh my God. Yeah, man. And I just watch my body disintegrate, like not even just like, oh, your muscle came off. More important than when you see your skin dead, your eyes drooped at all times. Like I said, I can't even look at videos from thank God we were using shittier cameras, because like it was not like I wouldn't fuck me. I'll be honest with you. Like it was nasty. Yeah, you look healthier now. What is your daily routine now? So I wake up at 6:25. I'm religious about this. Good. Like it's the same thing every day. I walk so I sleep like I'm going to fucking invade a third world country, right? I got actually huge hack. I know this sounds like not heterosexual, but just hear me out. Okay. You know Luisa Nicola, have I told you about her? No. She's the neurophysiologist genius. I had her on my podcast one time. Was she brunette or blonde? Brunette. Yeah. I watched that one. I met her back in like February or March, and she told me at the end of February, she goes, we were talking about my cortisol problems. She was saying something. Now I'm like, she said something on my podcast that was like, wow, I got to listen to this girl more. Dude, she says a lot. She's very smart. Yeah, continue. But one of the severe, I didn't mention this one of the severe side effects of everything that was going on between my health and then the work I was doing and my schedule, going to bed at 5, waking up at 10, is the amount of cortisol in my system. Yeah. Bro. And it was making that immune problem 3 times as bad. And so early in the year, even in February, I started feeling better, right? A little bit. My cortisol was still spiked and jacked at all times, like I'd rub my hand and fucking hair would come off my hand kind of thing. And she, Luisa's in my place and she's visiting the studio. Are you healthy at this time? I'm getting there, but I'm not there. Okay. This is February, I think. And so she can see my place, and she lives in New York, so she knows how New York is. Okay. It's always lit up. Yeah. And so she comes in the kitchen, she sees the skylight, which, by the way, that was like one of the reasons I picked this place. You saw where I was living for 3.5 years. It was a dark fucking shut off studio back in the woods. Right. There was no light coming in. Yeah. I'm like, I want a lit up place, right? So I had the skylight there. I have the skylight above my bed in that room. And like I said, it's New York. It's lit up at all times. There's little light sequences always coming in. It's the city that never sleeps. Even if you think it's not much light, your body does, which I wasn't aware of this science very well, obviously. And she said, Julian, do you sleep with an eye mask? And I was like, what am I, like, no, I don't fucking sleep with an eye mask. I'm a man. And she's like, I'm a man, I'm 40. But like, she's like, Julie, she's Australian. She's like, Julie, you must sleep with an eye mask. That was an English accent, but whatever. Still good. Like she's like, you must sleep with an eye mask. And I'm like, Louisa, that's a bridge too far. I'm already sleeping with the nose strip. Oh, you do? Dude, I work out with the nose strip every day. I will not work. I feel dumb. At this point, I'm used to it. It feels dumb. But like, do you breathe that much better? Oh, dude.
I gotta start trying that.
Game changer.
Really?
I will never not work out with it again. I wear it to physical therapy sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. But like, you know, so she's like, wear this eye mask. And I'm like, bridge too far. And she's like, suit yourself. Keep having your cortisol problems. You know, like female challenge. And I'm like, well, fuck you. I'll try it.
Yeah.
So I order one on Amazon. And after a week, I was like,
It takes one night with a sleep mask to be like, I'm sleeping with the shit on every night. I will too.
I slept with it in the Amazon.
Yeah, dude, I don't blame you, bro.
Where there's canopies blocking the sun.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care. I did ayahuasca and I had a fucking sleep mask with me.
That's crazy.
Right? Like that was the last thing in addition to everything that was going on that has helped put this over the top. And it's like all these little things just kind of came together and helped me out.
She was the one that said you're probably over drinking water, right?
No.
Drinking too much?
Well, that was one of the, she's like, well, you know, that could be, because I've always had bladder problems. She's like, that could be part of it. I'm like, no, it's hereditary. And she's like, because I've had family members who have it too. Okay. She's like, okay, that could explain it. But like we started this with my routines. So what I was saying was,
oh yeah, let me get back to that because Joe's gonna get mad at me for not.
When I sleep,
let me set a question because Joe gets mad. What is Julian Dorey? What?
For the clip.
What do you need? What do you need from me now? I know. What do you need from me now, this guy? What?
Don't worry about it. Just let it flow. Huh? So John.
I know.
Don't edit this. Leave this just like this. So don't edit it.
This is
so
good.
John, you want to know my morning routine?
Yes.
Okay. My morning routine is I wake up like I just invaded a third world country. I got a black eye mask on. I got a nose strip on. I now sleep with mouth tape too. Another game changer. Yeah, I know. Imagine me shutting my mouth. Hard to do. But anyway, so I get up, I rip off the mouth tape, I take off the nose strip, stick it in the trash can in my kitchen. You've been in my place, so you can picture this. Mm-hmm. I walk back into my closet back there, into the bathroom. I'd set my bed. It's like the first thing I do before I do it. And then I fucking throw on my clothes, throw on my sleeve, and come back into the kitchen with my shoes and socks. And over the next 5 to 6 minutes, the first thing I do is in one of those solo cups, I drip a thing called Moulain. I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. It's Mullein. Yeah, I guess. But what it does is it helps open up your lungs. So it's like it's just a dye that goes in water. And I drop that in. I pour the water full. It's about 12 to 13 sips. I take that. Over the next 5 to 6 minutes, I have that jug of water right there, which is like 130 ounces when full. I take 21 sips, 16 sips, and 11 sips. And it's really 22, 17, and 12, but the first one doesn't count because I have OCD. So while I'm putting on my shoes, I do this. And that's about 60 to 70 ounces of water right away in the morning. Okay? So let me tell you something about this. You're going to take the best shit of your life. When it cleans out, you think coffee cleans out your system, bro? You ain't never seen anything healthy like this. So by the end of that, I'm prairie dogging. So I'm right back to the bathroom, take a wicked shit. Sorry for the visual, everybody.
That's okay.
Then I do probably the most disgusting thing I have to do that I do in the morning and at night, but is incredible. I use a saline rinse in the sink and I clean out both of my sinuses. I brush my teeth, use a little mouthwash, and then throw on a nose strip, try to take one more shit, and then I roll out to the gym. And when I get to the gym, I've walked about 6 blocks. So if I have any shit left over, I take a quick shit. There's a common thread here.
Right.
So I take quick shit there. And then and while I'm doing my morning routine, I stretch a little bit too. Okay. Like just while I'm walking around and stuff. Because when I get to the gym, I'm shot out of a cannon. I fucking walk out of that locker room. Let's go. Right? I'm going to lift for an hour. I'm going to do my 23 minutes and 30 seconds of cardio or box, whatever that's going to be, which is going to be longer. And then my abs. And like, we're getting after it for like 100 to 120 minutes. And that's how I start my day. And then when I get back, I'll start going about my day. I try to schedule calls like right then in the morning because I can take a walk right after that, which kind of loosens me up after a hard workout. And I'm just, and then the rest of the day is a forest fire because as you know, there's a million things still going on. And some days I'm recording, other days I got to edit and I got to schedule this guy. That's still a mess. I got to figure all that out. But the difference of having that schedule and having my body back on a clear routine has physiologically changed the game for me. And it's like the greatest, Yeah, 2024 was the year of like investing in my health and back in me, and it has graduated up to the podcast too.
Do you eat?
Yeah, I do. I've intermittent fasted for like 8 years. I haven't had breakfast since the Vietnam War ended, but you know, I eat. I'm boring during the week because one of my other things is like I already have so many decisions to make during the day. I don't want to devote any decision making, if possible, to anything that's not my business, right? So when I eat lunch, I have the same thing. I have a fucking chicken breast with olive oil and oregano. If I deadlifted that day or boxed that day, I have 2 chicken breasts. I fill up a bowl of broccoli, olive oil and oregano. I have a Honeycrisp apple, an avocado, a banana, and some cashews. That's my lunch every day. And that's usually my dinner too, except instead of an avocado, and I won't have cashews, I'll have fucking non-fat Greek yogurt with chia seeds, which also, you know, like avocados and chia seeds help your digestive system.
Which again,
big time, 100%. That's why in the morning we're flowing, baby.
Okay, got
the
it.
water, the chia seed. I mean, sometimes, you know, it's like a sprinkled shit, not to get to, you know.
That's all right.
It is what
It's
it is.
still getting out.
But yeah, that's something I've done this year. And then, you know, on the weekends, we'll fuck around a little bit. Sometimes, you know, you're going out, doing things, living a social life. Like, you know, I'm not one of these people that's like counting calories at a fucking restaurant.
No.
I don't even count calories doing these meals or anything like that. I can't be like that.
You just count your sips. Of water.
I count my sips of water in the morning, and I know where the level is that it needs to be at to make sure that I drank enough. But that's why, like, when I roll into the gym,
You're ready.
I'm fucking.
I don't think I've ever once heard a more in-depth morning routine, and I should have known.
Could you imagine though a year ago me doing that?
No.
Even my mom's like, "Holy shit!"
But
good
look
for you.
but again, it's just like the anchor to your day. It's
the
done by
anchor
10
to
a.m.
my
or whatever
day.
it may be. Like now you're ready to go, and now you can kind of fuck. Not that you're fucking around, but the forest fire doesn't feel as overwhelming because you got at least something locked in for that day.
Yes, there are.
You know what I mean?
There are when I have those stressful moments that happen every day, they're more manageable because my brain's not rotted.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I have to throw a Hail Mary every time someone's coming in to record a podcast. Like, dude, every time someone came in, it was the same story as the day you first came. It was like, oh, I feel like dog shit.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember you had to stop mid-podcast. I forget why.
Once it was very close with Matt LaCroix. Actually, with Matt LaCroix, I had to pause for a second. I just said I had to go to the bathroom, but I went into the bathroom and like laid on the floor. That was July 2023.
Jesus.
That was right before I came. It was my body when it got up. When I got up to Hoboken, it had enough. It was so bad. I would literally call my mom. I'd be out on the street in Hoboken, like running out of my apartment, like couldn't breathe. And I'd be like, I don't know what the fuck, like getting to CVS trying to get an emergency inhaler or something. It was so bad. And then all this shit happened that we already talked about last November with the podcast at the same time. So the stress was it was so bad. Yeah. So I'm so grateful to have it where it is this year and, you know, have a lot of those problems fixed. And like 2024 has been the year of getting my health back. And, you know, the elephant in the room is that hopefully 2025 is the year of really getting my life back. You know, like the life I had before I did this. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I never had any money or anything, but, you know, I worked very hard. It wasn't like I was fucking around, but, you know, I played very hard too. Yeah. I was the what city are we in guy every weekend. And it's like that, to do what I've done, I knew coming into it. I said this, I verbalized this to like my parents, to people close to me. You know that you're going to get all the unexpected, the things you cannot plan for. But I said the one like broad thing that I just know in my bones because of how difficult breaking into space like this is going to be is that the first 3 to 5 years, I need to assume I have zero life. And that has proven to be correct because we're coming up on 5 years. And I've had more of a life since I got up to Hoboken. You know, it's New York City. Go out a little bit. We have a good time. But it's not like I want to be at a point where I'm doing that every weekend, no matter what. Not going out and getting blacked out or being an asshole, but having fun with friends at all times, turning off the clock because I can. Right. And knock on wood, it feels like we're not far from there. And maybe if I get back to that, I'll get myself back a little bit. I don't know.
I think so. You see The Rock was on that podcast with was it Speed, the guy's name?
Show Speed?
I think no, yeah, maybe. No, I forget what the guy's name is. I think it's Speed. And he asked him, I gotta look it up before I keep going. But he basically asked him the question, because he's going through his whole routine and whatever. And he's like, do you have fun? And The Rock's like, what? He's like, do you have fun? He's like, well, what do you consider fun? He's like, no, do you enjoy anything? And it was like an introspective moment for The Rock. He went on, reflected on it. He posted a story. He's like, I was on this podcast and this guy asked me the question, do I have fun? And I realized I have to take a step back and enjoy the moment. And now he's relaxing for the first time. But he went on again and talked about it because you get caught up in the moment. Like you don't want to lose what you have and you're working so goddamn hard. But it's like, what is the point of all of this if you can't take a step back and be like, I'm going to enjoy a weekend or I'm going to enjoy the people I'm with. And it's not about just getting hammered on the weekend and now doing things that are going to be disadvantageous to the business. But it's about enjoying and like rejoicing in it. Like, hey, I had a really good podcast day. Let's go celebrate with whatever it may be that you want to do to celebrate. But having that little accomplishment moment for yourself, I think is very important, especially for you. Because you're very serious.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I'm not.
Speedy is the guy's name.
You know me. I'm not like a serious guy. That's not how I'm naturally wired.
Right.
But you're 100% right in doing this. It's been so serious. And like, you know, there's weird things that happen in life. We talked about some of the story before. I don't need to rehash it. But like one of the things, I don't know if I told you this, but the day Kobe Bryant died was really like the day this was born. But I had my buddy's wedding that I was in the night before. So we were just hammered. And then I had a job to do that day, media work. And I was like, oh shit. So I go back, I was in South Jersey. So I go back to my parents' house. Because I was still living up in North Jersey at the time. And I was like, all right, I need to like get a workout in to sweat this out so I can be a normal person for my buddy Ty later. And because he was like doing like a big event and wanted me to do some stuff on camera with him. I'm like, I need to be good. So I'm doing this workout. And one thing I'll do maybe every 6-7 months in the gym for about 3-4 weeks, I'll switch it up and I'll have like this playlist of videos of, you know, the cool Hans Zimmer music in the background and dudes talking to you. So it'll be everything from like Ray Lewis to like Eric the hip hop preacher to Conor McGregor to, you know, these guys who just, when they start talking, you start listening, you know? And so at the time there was this video that had dropped like maybe about 5 months. I think it was August 2019. Kobe did an onstage interview with Patrick Bet-David. Mm-hmm. And to Patrick Bet-David's credit, it was the best interview Kobe Bryant ever did by a lot. Like maybe it was an hour long, something like that. Like the interior of the Mamba's mind and mentality that people got out of that was insane. So someone had made like an 11-minute and 37-second-ish like cut with music of some of the shit he said in this thing. And on January 26th, 2020, while I was doing that workout, I was listening to that and the text came through that he died, which was, you know.
Yeah.
You're like, and I had just started listening to this like 3 days before. I hadn't thought about Kobe Bryant in a while. And I was like, whoa. But one of the things he said in there is Patrick Bet-David was like, so tell me, like your friends around you, do they you know, you work so hard, like you have to go away, you have to disappear. Like, do they understand this? And he's like, some of them do. And some of them don't. But like the people who love you stay. But make no mistake about it. That time you go to do this, it's lost. It's gone. You don't get that back. You know, you can try to make up for it afterwards, but when you're in there, when you have a goal that so few people have and you're working for it and grinding for it, the people who are closest to you will understand, but there will still be a serious loss there for both of you, for both sides of that equation. And I remember that night at like 10 o'clock driving home after we did the media work, and people had come up to me afterwards like, you got to do a podcast, man. And this is where it was like kind of born. And I just drove home to North Jersey like in silence. And I was just thinking about it. And it was such a weird day because, like, you know, Kobe was a Philly guy and I was a huge fan. And, you know, it's so tragic how he died and everything. It was just unbelievable. But I was like, I thought about that. And I was, you know, I was like crying in the car. just over the day and over where my life was. And I said, well, if I did a podcast, I'd do it right. And let's start planning this a little bit. And that's when I started working on it. And I knew like I said, I verbalized it to people. I'm like, I know I'm going to have to go away for a while. And to the credit of many of my friends and family members, I've had a lot of people who have been unbelievably supportive of that, who at least understand me. And they've been cool with that because like it was a switch up. I went from like, Jules, who was always around doing his thing, to, oh yeah, he's working, right? But, it stings when we always focus on the people who don't support that. It might be a small percentage, in which case I'm lucky it is. But like there's some people I took phone calls from in the middle of the night and went to where they were to take care of them. They never so much as sent me a text about this shit. And it makes you think about like those who love you understand, those who don't won't. But at some point there, yeah, you want to smell the roses a little bit. You want to live life. You want to like get there. And I've lived more of a life, like I said, over the last year being up here. Because I will tell you, when I moved up here, part of what made me able to do what I do is I had such an interesting life in so many different places with so many different people, having access to so many different things, that would come through in the podcast. And as I got farther and farther away from that, doing the podcast, suddenly you didn't have those experiences and you couldn't just keep drawing water from the same well. So, coming up here has replenished that a little bit. But I want to be at a point, and I got to earn this, to where like, it's 4:30 on Friday. Don't fucking call my phone till Monday. I'm out. Like I'm gonna go do my thing with people I love, do what I want to do, and that has definitely like it's affected my happiness to not have that consistently at this point, and it's affected my, like we talked about, my ability with people, with how my job affects it, and that's true. But it also affects how deeply I build relationships, because I know, like, I don't want to burden people with what I do, and it stops me from, going as far with, definitely stops me with that, and that's a source of unhappiness for sure.
The burden one. I just saw somebody speaking about the beauty of love and like relationships is allowing somebody to feel that burden and carry that burden with you. And when you don't, you're doing them a disservice, because like they want to, in a weird way, they want to feel your pain. They want to help you through this pain. And when you're not giving people that opportunity, you're right. You're shutting them out. They don't just want to be there for your wins. They want to be, if they truly care about you, want to be there when you are feeling down or going through some shitty times. And now everything you're saying is kind of coming full circle, and it's making a lot of sense why you feel the way you feel. We just talked about it in reverse. If we had somebody that's never been on camera and with a mic in front of them before, they could be great off, but they're going to be a little bit shell-shocked when they get on the podcast. You're doing the same thing to yourself. You're not having fun. You're not having regular conversations and building real relationships with people off the camera. So you're not used to it anymore.
Or outside of business.
Right. If it's not in the realm of business for you, it's like, I don't know where to start. It's like trying to write after not writing for 5 years. It just feels unnatural. You've done it for so long, and you can get it back relatively easily. It's just about going and doing it. And it just starts with doing. Just like it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable the first time you film, it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable the first time you go and have a casual, non-business conversation with a girl or a guy you just met or a friend from wherever, and talking about nothing.
I just, and especially like with women, like there've been some great girls along the way here. Not like a ton. Like me, I'm fucking busy. So it's not like I'm fucking someone every weekend. That does not happen, to be clear. Like there's people who think like you do this job, like, oh, you just making so much money. I'm like, where we can, pal. But like, they're all great, but I don't let them in because I don't want to, like, I have a lot of love to give, and I do give it to other people. It's part of why I'm good at what I do, right? I'm like everyone's hype man. That's what I always love to do. Now I just get to do it on camera, right? And actually make a living out of it. But like off camera too, I'm everyone's hype man. How can I help this person? How can I do this? Because that's what gets me off in life. But with love, it can't just be you're willing to give all of it. You have to be willing to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
And a huge error on my part, or whatever it is, flaw, is that for a long time now, I've been unwilling to receive it. And, you know, you also, especially if you're talking about women, you got to have the right girl come into your life, right? We're not 24 anymore.
Yeah.
You know, back then it's like, you know, whatever.
Who cares?
You're at a point now when you hit 30 where you're like, oh shit, if the right one walks in, this could be the last one. Like, you know, we're gonna have kids or something like that. And, you know, you can sit there and be picky about it, or you can also just be like, I'm not there yet, so you don't want to be burdened with me. Yeah. And that's what I do. And like I don't want to, I'm sure none of them are watching this, but like to some of the past women, I don't want to talk them down at all. They're fucking awesome. But like none of them have been it, right? And that even more makes it the easiest cop out ever for me to be like, you need to get away from me.
Yeah.
You know, like this is, I work all the time. You're a great girl. You know, go find someone that doesn't do that. And at some point, that's got to change.
Gotta let people in, man. You know, it's scary because of what you do and the life you live is very different. But like, what's the worst that happens? A girl gets in and now she's burdening you, or maybe the opposite. Like, what if now she's helping you through these times and you feel way better about yourself and you're even more motivated? Like, nothing's gonna motivate you more than a fucking girl that you love.
No, I don't think anything does. You ever been in love?
When I was 17, for sure. I didn't know what love was, and that's the only thing
But you know you were in love.
I knew that if given the opportunity, would have stayed with that girl forever. Like, that was all I cared about. There was the first girl that I was like, this is the one. I don't see flaws in her. I don't look at other women like this because it's like my first time. And that was it. I was good. And now you open yourself up to the world and the checklist starts coming out. Like, who's opportunity cost wise, who's better for you and who's not. And they start analyzing a lot more, which in reality it is a feeling. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they check off all the boxes. If you don't feel the type of way that you felt, that's not the one. And then, you know, a couple other times where you're like, oh, it could be. But I now think because of our age, I don't think it's going to smack us in the face as it once did when we were young, because we have all these different things we're thinking about. Maybe it smacks you in the face for a second. You're like, wait a minute, hold on. I have a lot going on. Is she aligned with my values? Is she aligned with my lifestyle? So you take a step back, whereas you're young, 17 years old, you get smacked with love. You're like, this is great, you know?
But when you were 17, that was the only time you were ever in love?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say girls have definitely, no, I will not say the only time. I've definitely had girls in my later stage of life, that same thing if they're listening, that have impacted me and have had a really big role, and that love
but you would know if you were in love, bro.
In love is a weird feeling, man. Yeah. I think it's one of those things where you don't know why you feel a type of way. And now I feel like back then it was a feeling with no reason behind that feeling. Now I'm like, am I in love because I know what maybe this girl could do for me? You know what I mean? I think you look at these things a little bit differently. And that's where for me, like, I got to take a step back and let it just happen.
Why didn't it work out with the girl at 17?
I think that's a good question. God, if she's fucking listening to this. So I dated her in high school, junior, senior year. I don't know, man. I got a taste of like what I thought life was going to be like. You know what I mean? Like, the grass is always greener type of thing. And I was like, I want to give that a shot. And then I soon realized that life wasn't what I thought it was going to be, you know, the college lifestyle. And I kind of went back to her, and I was always chasing different things. It was definitely not her. Like, she was there. She was a ride or die, loyal. I was sick in the hospital for a really long time. She was there every night, sleep with me. And I let it go. Like, I for sure was the reason that didn't keep going and progressing.
You never tried to make that work again?
Now it's just, we're in the same relative friend groups, and I feel like it's too far gone. Personally,
you're in the same friend groups now. That's gone.
Yeah, we have mutual friends.
That's
and listen, no disrespect to her at all. I think she's a great girl. I think we both know we're not aligned now. As maybe we could have grown together, but I think now.
Why are you not aligned now?
We're so different than when we once were, and I don't think if we met today we'd be like, we just don't gel. Have great conversation, but not
time and place kind of
thing. Yeah, I do think that. I always thought the opposite. I always thought, man, if we met later in life, we'd be the ones for each other. And now I'm like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just
like that was a long time ago though, too.
17 years old, a fucking long time ago.
So like, do you remember what that feels like though?
Yeah, I would recall. I will say I've had 2 girls that when I walked in the room and met them for the first time, I was like, whoa, same feeling that I had with that girl.
Now, what do you call that? Do you call that in love?
That's the only way I would understand to like explain that feeling. You know what I mean? Like, what else would you call that? But I think being in love is more of like it's an overtime thing.
Exactly.
It can't be an overnight thing.
So I don't know. This is just how I've always defined it. I think this is all totally subjective, but to me, there's 2 layers of love. There's in love, and then below that layer, also very important, is like love, right? Yeah. In love, to me, and I know exactly what that feeling is. I know exactly when I felt it. I know why I felt it to an extent, you know, and just it's the greatest, most powerful feeling ever. But like in love takes at least, you got to know him. You got to get to know him. Usually there's something physical involved there too, in all seriousness. Like, you know, you get to that point where you're like, holy shit, I would run in front of a bus for this girl. Right. No questions asked, and do it with a smile on my face. Right. But below that is just love. And this is, to me, this has always been the special thing, because this is the thing that is just biological, evolutionary. I don't know what it is, but it's just, right? And I always say this, I've only ever lived between my 2 ears, so I can only tell you how I see things, but hearing other people's experiences, human stories and whatever, it sounds like this is a phenomenon that like a lot of men, at least talking from our side of the gender, will get, which is just where for whatever reason, you know, when you lock eyes with a girl, usually for the first time, or maybe, you know, you've been around her, locked eyes with her a few times, but then like that moment hits, time stops for a second, and you're just like, I really can't explain this, but my soul and her soul are tied together. And the best part is when that then has the opportunity to graduate to being in love, which I have experienced a few times before. And to me, that second layer is the greatest gift that a human being can have. And that's why I get hard on myself for not letting that happen, because it's been a long time since I felt that. I did have some other stuff, but like as far as being fully in love, it's been a long time. And the older you get and the more life experience you get, and missed opportunities, fucking up, overthinking things, whatever, the more you wonder if you're ever going to get that again.
Yeah. And I knew you were going to say that. And the answer is you will, for sure. I think right now, again, the difference between you now versus 10 years ago, or whenever you were in love, is like you have this obsession that you never had prior. You're obsessed with what you do, which is beautiful, but that does take priority in the brain. Like if all you thought about was that, as again, take my 17-year-old as an example. I thought about football and this girl. That was it. That's all I cared about. Right. Now I have this obsession I have with the brand and growing is so exciting and I love it. A girl's secondary to that. Like, oh yeah, you're
They're
cool.
second
like,
to Joe and Dan.
Right. Like, these guys, right. This is everything I'm trying to build is so much greater than a random girl that I'm meeting for the first time. So it is hard. Like you got to open the door and let these people in. And I do think they can happen simultaneously. Like I think the excuse of I'm so busy, we know it's just an excuse. Like if the right girl walked in the room, we would know it. But you do have to work on it. Like I'm sure. And I think the biggest regret is the feeling of you let the right girl walk because you were so,
it's the worst.
You're so obsessed with what you do. And that's all you cared about.
The worst. Even before I did what I did, like that's the worst fucking feeling. Cause I also don't, and this is just something I got to be aware of with myself, on those rare occasions where like you have that look, right? This happens maybe once every 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. Right. The times they graduated were because they made the right moves, not me. Cause I don't know how to handle that. Yeah. And like, you know, there were a couple, let's say in the last 5, 6 years that it's like, I just fucked it up. Like I didn't, everything that makes me great at what I do, out the window, bye-bye. You know, I'm just like, how do I talk to this perfect human being? Yeah. And it's just, it's like such a curse. Cause you're just like, oh my God, I just saw inside your soul. It's perfect. You know? Yeah. But that's, you know, I listen, like I said, I only ever lived between my ears, but I think a lot of guys listening can probably relate to that on some level at some point with some girls. Sure. You know, you put pressure on yourself, and then, you know, you're not yourself, and hopefully you can get around those flaws and eventually you find the right one. But, you know, you also, and I'm a real believer in this, you cannot go out and go looking You can't be like, I'm going to go fall in love. I'm going to go find my what. You're going to be in divorce court in 3 years if you ever even get to the fucking marital part of it.
Right.
And it's like, you got to let life happen. But to your point, and this is where I got to do some soul searching, when life is kind of walking in a little bit, you got to say, yeah, come through the door.
That's exact. I think a lot of men, when you get to our age, you don't have a girl that like, is the one, you operate and you move with like this fear of lack. And so like you're going through life, you're like, I need a girlfriend. Why you say you need one? Because you don't have one. So now you're telling yourself, and again, if you believe in God or the universe, that I don't have this thing and I'm destined to never have this thing.
Right.
And I need it. Please, I need it. You're going to move so different, as opposed to saying like, I have an abundance of this thing. I'm just waiting for the right one and to seize the opportunity. And I think you and I are like, we know and acknowledging that we are not letting them in the way that we probably should.
Right.
You know, and it'll happen. I think it'll happen when we're really ready for it. Yeah. When we least expect it and we're truly ready for that. And maybe that's today, maybe that's tomorrow, maybe it's next year, but who really knows?
What's the number one thing you look for in a girl?
See, again, I've had checklists. Joe like this.
I don't want the checklist. I want just the feel. The one
you got to be like and unique is such a cop out, but I want something different than what average really is. And it's not like I need something special. I need excitement. Like I need to be intrigued. But I want to have a conversation and really ponder on what the fuck you just said, because it's so different than however other girls think. And every girl kind of like touts herself as I'm different. But I mean, a girl like really moves a little bit differently and thinks differently. And of course, I want her morals to be in check and her to be very wholesome and only have eyes for me. But other than that, like I need you to be a little bit different than the pack, you know?
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm an eyes guy, right? Like, I don't just mean that like physically. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of girls with beautiful eyes. I pass them on the street all the time. It's like, oh, love you. Great, right? But there's, what I do is I sit across from people for 3-6 hours at a time, and I try to look into their soul and understand where they're at. So like, I really live on that. And for me, it's like the old Al Pacino line, like, the eyes never lie, Chico. It's very true. Like, if you're watching them for real, you and I were talking off camera about some people earlier who turned out to not be what they said. And like,
me eyes, be like, oh, I should have known.
You should have known. Yeah. And, for me, like there is one thing that cannot be faked. Period. End of story. No one. I don't think I've ever seen a male fake it, but it's less of like that male gene. It's more. I'm talking more about females with this. If you have a deep, intense kindness in your eyes, it is the most attractive thing ever. Like when it's in your bones, in your soul, it comes right through your eyes, which are the windows to the soul. Yeah. And I melt when I see that. Like it fucking stabs me in the heart. I have no idea what to do with it, because evolutionarily, like even when I was 22 and just thinking about like, oh, let's go get pussy or whatever, like you're attracted to that and you don't realize it at the time, but you realize it when you're my age now, which is you're looking at eyes and you're like, if I procreated with this woman and my kids looked at those eyes, would they have just hit the fucking lottery? And it's like, of course they would. That's a really
good way to put it. How do you want your kids to look at their mom one day?
100%. There's a huge difference, like not to be like crude about it, but this is a difference that I was late to the party on for sure. And I've kind of realized it over the last year. There is just a thing. There's a girl you sleep with and there's a girl you marry. And they are two different things.
Very different.
And I think I just, selectively ignored that for a long time. Right. I probably knew it, but was like, oh, no, she's great.
Yeah, she's the one.
No.
It's not.
And you know that difference. It's so fucking clear, man.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Let's have an expert on.
Yeah.
And talk about it.
I totally, everything that I'm good at, out the window.
That's how you know like the right one's going to really improve your life, because it's how much of an impact they have on you. You know what I mean? And
well, they better talk to me. That's all.
It's got to be for the better, man.
What's up, guys? If you want to check out this full podcast, it was on my buddy John RONDI show, which is also called The John RONDI Show. He's got an amazing podcast. He's been doing it for a while. You may recognize him from TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for years now as Johnny Drinks. But he's got a lot of great guests on there. And we did this episode as well as one over the summer where I recounted my entire trip to the Amazon with Paul Rosalie, which was a lot of fun. So be sure to hit the links at the top of my description to go check those out and toss John a subscribe. Thank you.